Hey guys, I'm starting to feel better this afternoon. Swallowing, fine, okay, finally. So, just going to be covering the exercise 3 here with Premiere, and I've got a second display I'll be checking on. So this exercise is going to be following step by step the website that I have for this, right? The exercise 3 page. And I'm not really going to be veering off from this too much. So I'll just be giving any kind of little specifics about the different tools and techniques as we go along. I might stop this recording a few times and splice it together. But I will also be on YouTube putting the time code stamps, like the step-by-step, so that you can skip around a little easier. And last thing I will note is at the end here, at the bottom of the exercise 3 page, there is an example video of like using the same content I have available for you guys. An example edit that I did using this exercise, right? And this is kind of it should give you an idea of like at least what you are going to be achieving through this, or what you should be achieving. I would say this is kind of like the starting ground, right? You should be able to get through a variety of different examples like this. So that could be a good reference for you as well. Okay. And so the goal here is we're going to create a like 20 to 30 second long clip and use the video clips that I have downloaded. Well, you can download them as well right here, zipped. Got that linked. You could use your own clips, doesn't matter to me. This is just for convenience sake. It's a variety of different pieces of content. Some of it's HD, some of it's in 4K. We're going to take a look at that as well. And I'll start to get into specifics too about some of that stuff on Monday. We can ask questions, do a little Q&A, because we kind of missed like any sort of like lecture entry point for this section. Okay, so first step here is going to be gathering content. So like I said, I've already downloaded this. We're going to make sure though you've set up a folder. So big issue that I've found with probably 75% of all of you so far, I'm finally catching up with all the Project 2 grades. And a lot of you didn't have things linked correctly. Not everyone, so it can work successfully. So when I go to launch your project file in Audition, it's asking me, can't locate this one file. Please link it. So I have to go through. Some of them, it's only 1 or 2 things it needs to relink. Some people I had to relink like 15 different items, and the names are slightly changed. So it's like it makes me spend a lot more time. And ultimately, when you're working with other people or working for an employer or whatever, that's not going to fly, right? Like that's unnecessary. So what you want to do is set up your filing structure like this, and we are going to import our video content. This is the zip I downloaded. I unzipped it. Here's our video content. We're going to put that video content in the same folder as our exercise. And just so there's no confusion, let's rename this original video. Okay. It's all in here. Okay. So for example, if this field right here had some crazy weird name, like super long, If I go to import this now, this file into Premiere, I could use it. But then later, say I go to submit, I'm like, oh, this is weird. I must have messed up. And if I decide, oh, I don't really need all this in here, let me just get rid of that. The Premiere file now will not have the correct link because you've changed the name. So it's important to do whatever sort of file management now prior to importing. Okay. So this step is like, we possibly went over it fast, but this notion of like setting things up into an original folder before you bring it in is crucial to making sure that you don't have issues down the road, and don't do any sort of renaming of stuff. That doesn't even matter, right? As long as Premiere can link it, it doesn't matter what the name is. Okay. For your own sake of being able to like know what the clips are, yeah, sure, you can like hit the space bar on your keyboard, see what this video clip is, abstract green squirrels. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Well, what if you had like, you know, two things that are very similar? Like maybe there's two leaves, right? So maybe you want to give an example of what that leaf is. So maybe this is like close-up leaf, or, you know, give it whatever description you need to know what that clip is before you import it. So then in Premiere, you don't have to do any renaming on there either. Okay, so this is all information about step one, like bringing in files. So getting on to step two here. Premiere is very similar to the layout of Audition in that nothing is available, and then we go to new project. Once we open this, we're still set with a blank canvas, so to speak, or blank window. There's not even like a timeline yet, just like Premiere, just like Audition. And got Zoom windows here. We want it to have this name, exercise 3. And where are we saving it? To the exercise 3 folder. Hit choose. I might have already done this one, so I might have to save over it. Nothing here has to be changed. Nothing in ingest has to be changed. Nothing in scratch disk has to be changed. We could just have the name, make sure we're linking it to the right place, hit OK. I will say that scratch disks can be beneficial to use if you have one. A scratch disk is essentially just a second drive other than your primary computer hard drive. And this could be an external drive. This could be a second internal drive. You probably could even use like a thumb drive now, as long as it's fast enough, like a USB 3.0, like the blue USB or Thunderbolt. So essentially what scratch disks are doing are allowing you to render your content at a faster speed because you're not bogging down the primary hard drive that's managing your files for you, running your operating system and so forth. Right, so you're kind of sharing the workload, so to speak. So if you did have a scratch disk, you would go in and change some of these locations to that scratch disk. And then every time you would go to work on the project, you would need that scratch disk to be connected. Otherwise, you know, say if you go to the studio and you were working and you forgot that drive, you can just change these back to the same hard drive you're working on. It would just take time to re-render things, and then you'd be fine, right? So this is just, it's not needed. It's a bonus to be able to render things more quickly. So we're gonna hit OK. And so this is step 2, opening up Premiere. And as we can see, this is just a blank screen here. There's some learning things over here, looks like. We don't need those. Just like the other Adobe programs, we do have different workspaces to be kind of in our view of our desktop screen. I'll say that for our workspace here in our class, we'll use editing. I was just double checking the editing workspace. So that learning thing will pop off here. All right, and very similar layout to Audition. I'll cover a couple other points about the layout here once we have a couple of pieces of content in, so that, you know, when we talk about it, we have something to look at. And that's it, right? We have the timeline down here we're going to be working on, our file stuff over here, and this is going to be our source content. So we get to preview what it is that we want to drag in. We have a preview window for that. So pretty similar to Audition, other than maybe the preview source window there. So on to step 3, we're going to import and organize our content. So down here is where we're needing to import stuff. We could drag and drop stuff here. Or we can go to import, we can go to file import, or we can make new bins first, right? So if we didn't have our content already organized in our folder, we could make new bins, and then have bins are essentially folders inside of Premiere. However, since we do have this set, what we could do is just take that original video and drag it in. Okay, and that's going to bring the entire folder in. So if you didn't want the folder, say, if you didn't want to have separate folders like this in here, like bins, you could just select all the video content, hold Shift, bring that in. What's nice about this, though, is that you could then do another, another bin here. Oops. Right, you could have different folders to kind of help you out. And there is different ways to view your content down here. So right now we're in this icon view. Go to list view, right, where we could have things drop down. This is usually what I prefer to have up. And then we can get a preview of the stuff here. So these colors don't really matter. Pretty sure you can rename all of the labels. The thing that does matter here, though, is you can see a little like banner icon for content. So this is going to be video content, right? Like film, this video and audio. And then if we had just audio, it would show just the green waveforms. But we also do have this freeform view, and I guess this is a newer view. Interesting. Okay, so I guess the freeform view works with folders, or with bins. So it doesn't seem too helpful right here. You can scrub on here. I'm not even clicking, but you can literally just hover over the video and it should be able to play back. If it doesn't, it's just because your computer's slower. I have a newer computer, so it should be pretty pretty fast. Now, it's not too easy to see all this stuff, right? But I will say that you notice how this is outlined in blue, this window here, this panel. We should be able to just hit the tilde key, which is that little key underneath of your escape, the little tilde, that wavy line. And that's going to allow us to expand the view of whatever window we're in. And then if we want to go back, we just hit it again. So it's a way to pop that window open and then we can collapse it. So within this view, we can actually rearrange our videos here. Right, and all these are too low for whatever reason. Just trying to bring them all up at once. Ugh. 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 There we go. Okay. We're almost there. Probably a faster way to do that. Right, so we can layer all these in like this. You can also use these as a way to decide like which clips you want in which order. So if you already have an idea of some of the orders that you would do, you could simply, you know, lay them out like this. Right? You could have them 1, 2, 3. Right? And this is going to be important here in a second. I remember though we don't yet have a timeline. So so we'll come back to this in a second, looks like, because we have another step after this. So, so this is step 3, bringing content in. Step 4 is going to be previewing content up here in the source window. So if we take any clip like this, if we just simply double click on it, this is going to bring up that clip in a preview in our source window. Okay, and we should be able to see all of the playback features here. Oops. Right. We can use our space bar to play this back. Okay, and right now we're viewing this at half size, or not size, resolution. So if your computer is getting bogged down, not only can you speed up your performance of your computer by doing it here, but also once we get some content over here to our preview window, the main preview window, we can also change it there. So you would do it as low as possible. So what's nice about this is that instead of just previewing it down here really small, we have the ability of previewing it larger. But really what's nice is we can set input and output points to like start and stop where we want the clip to be, like pre-trimming it, so to speak, right? So say there's like this slab of, oh, it's a little off. We'll say right here, we'll put that as an input. So all we would have to do once we find somewhere on the timeline where we want a clip to start, we would hit I for in, okay? And then we just go to somewhere else on the same timeline. And we can hit out. Okay. And once we have that here, we're ready to bring that in to our timeline. But we don't yet have a timeline. However, one quick thing before we get into the timeline thing I want to make note of is this clip here, since I've trimmed it now, it's not actually trimming the original file. This is just setting points so that if I were to bring this into my timeline, it's only going to show me from here to here. If I knew that this is the preferred trim points and I didn't need the other bits anymore, we could right click on the file and make a subclip. And this subclip would actually save. See how it's saved as subclip? It would save down here into our bin. There's one other point of that though. If you restrict it to the subclip boundaries, this subclip at least will not have access to the stuff you've trimmed off. It's essentially deleting that. Okay, so if you're going to keep the original file, and this is just a kind of a way to help you speed up whatever process you're doing, yeah, sure, why not restrict it? Because then this way you're not duplicating a whole file, you're just duplicating this part of a file. So we could say okay. And then if we were to go back and look at this, I don't even know what I just did. Okay. Zoned out there. Okay. I'm not sure. Let's see if it'll give us anything again. Why is this locked? Oh, okay. So I locked it. Kind of confused. Let's see if we can figure it out. Toggle the project between read only and write. Okay. That's kind of weird that it deleted my content out of there. So, okay, weird. I guess I shouldn't click on things so quickly. Let me open something again. Top-down truck. Okay. So input, output, right? If I do make subclip, okay, we can now see here in our files, this actually is a different icon. So you can see the little brackets. Those brackets are the mark in, mark out points, right? These are just shortcut keys, I-O. So it's showing you that it's a subclip while also labeling it at the end as a subclip. If you wanted to make it helpful for yourself, you can make your own folders depending on what the content is, right? Just like Photoshop, if you're compiling a bunch of pieces into an object, if you have a bunch of pieces into something you're working in here, you could make new bins and put everything in them. Some people like to put like all subclips in a bin. It just depends on the way you like to work. But clearly, as you get more and more and more stuff here, you might end up with like 20, 30 things here. You can see naming things before you bring it in is going to be helpful. Because if you download some random converted thing from YouTube, it's going to be weird here. So I think that's probably where some of the confusion happened in the Audacity project. Name things well before you bring it in, then you can organize from there on out. Okay. All right, so that's up through step 4. Okay, so continuing on here with step 5. We're just going to be placing content on the timeline. And as of right now, I haven't walked you guys through establishing a timeline. You can just drag and drop a clip over. However, whatever clip is first, so if you were to grab like a whole stack, whatever one's first that hits the timeline, your timeline is going to be created with the specific specifications of that clip. So if it's a 4K clip, it's going to be a 4K timeline. For our purposes, we want to actually just make sure it's set to HD. So just so there's no confusion, we go ahead and go to new sequence. And we can set our specifics here. And then chances are once we bring over some content, it'll ask us to change it or not to. So you'll have that. So we don't need DV. Probably ABC HD 1080p. Drop down. Oh, there we go. Yeah, this one's probably fine. I mean, all of them are going to change a little bit, you know, like what color space is it using? We're just looking for something that is 1080p, not 1080i. That would be interlacing. We're looking for progressive and 30 frames per second. So that's the AVC. There's probably a few other ones down here. You know, HDV, HD video. So all of them should be 1440 pixels. Wide. This is actually high. So we don't want that. Go back and look at this. Oh yeah, not 1440. 1440. 1920. Why am I thinking 1440? I think that's a 720p thing. So if we all just stick with this one, maybe that'll be the easiest. You know, there's some other particulars we can go in and mess with if we want to. 29.97, that's rounding up to 30. Okay, hit OK. It's going to give us our timeline, starting at 0, moving on out. Then we can expand the time here if we want to, move this around. Let's go ahead and just bring over a clip. But before we do that, go to your list view. And let's drag this out. We could actually see okay, here we go. You can actually see what the content is that you'd be bringing over. So let's see, my kaleidoscope is 30 frames per second and 1920 by 1080. So that's a 1080p clip. So if we were to start with kaleidoscope, I believe we'd have good chances of it not prompting us to change anything. Oops. Oh, that's your volume. Okay, so we could plop that down. Nope, Still gonna ask us. So it doesn't really matter, change or keep. Okay. And another thing we can look at too is after we created that sequence, we call it sequence 01. It shows up down here. So we could, and this is probably easier for this class, just to stick with the one sequence. You could make several sequences and then literally just take that whole sequence and make a new sequence, like a main sequence, and then you could drop all of your smaller sequences down onto the timeline as a way of breaking up the work. So, okay, so yeah. Next point here. Oh, let's also bring over a 4K clip, because there's something about 4K to make sure I point out. Oh, the subclip that we did is the top-down truck. That's 4K. So if we bring this over, it's already trimmed. It's much smaller. If we go over to it, we should see that it's like zoomed in, right? Why is it zoomed in? It could be pretty obvious to some of you, but just depends on your understanding of, you know, video resolutions. So we set our canvas to 1920 pixels wide by 1080 pixels high. Okay. And oops. Get out of that. 4K content is 2160. So it's twice as high. So since we put this 4K piece in here, it's twice as high as 1080p as our sequence. So we're only seeing half the vertical. In fact, we're actually seeing a quarter of the entire clip. So if we wanted to, we could leave this for right now. And I think this would be a good clip to leave. We could check that out here momentarily. Let's bring a second one over, motorbike. So motorbike is another 4K clip. So if we double click on the motorbike to bring it up here at our source, we can see they look different, right? So this is another example. If we were to right click the motorbike on our timeline, there's an option to, I believe we want scale to frame size. What's the other one? Yes. See, so that automatically will shrink it down to fit the container. So in theory, this is now a 1080p, you know, just regular HD clip upon exporting. So the reason I think we should leave this one for now. Hello. It's frozen up. That's way slower than I thought it was going to be. Because I have a newer M1. Not doing a whole lot on here. I got my other screen on here too, but so regardless, once we get into some effects and things, we can come back and revisit this and see that not only could we just scale it down to fit the container perfectly, but we could do things like rotate. Since it's 4K and there's more content out here, we could rotate the frame without having like black lines on the sides here, right? Because there's more content beyond the edges of the border. Next point is, I believe also here still in step 5, is talking about like these, I think it's like pre-rendering. What is this actually called? I'm blanking on it. We're just referring to this yellow bit right here on the top of our timeline. This is in reference to how the video content will be playing back. So if I hit the space bar right now, I hit it, it's waiting. Now it's playing, but it's a little stuttery. This is definitely stuttery. It's not playing back as smoothly as it could. Now, a couple things to keep in mind about that is, this is a 4K piece of content that's playing back at half scale. So I could actually reduce the resolution. And then when I play this back a second time, I mean, technically it should be a tiny bit better. Not really. So I'm assuming most of you will have something similar to this. Now, the thing that you need to do in order to be able to play this back smoothly, a couple things actually. First, you want to save, right? And then we need to render this content. So this is where like an external scratch disk would come in handy. But so there's two things we could do. The first thing we could do is render selection, right? We selected all of this. Or there's an in to out. And so as of right now, we don't have in to out set. We covered that up here, right? But we actually do still have the in and outs over here for our timeline. So what I like to do when I'm working is, instead of rendering this entire piece, because chances are I'll go and change things later on, is I like to just see the transitional points. So maybe I put the in point here and the out here, right? And again, that's just IO on the keyboard. That'll set our in out points. And so at that point, we don't need to even make a selection. We could just go up to the sequence, render in to out. And it's just going to render this area from the in to out. And we can see the green already going across there. So now that this is set for green, it's just showing us that we're going to have smooth playback. We're not going to have any problems with playback. Now, if you were to have red somewhere, red is an indicator like it's not going to play at all. The yellow is just a warning, right? So sometimes you could go through different effects and the effects might come up as red. So, or it just depends on how your computer is. Okay. So that's step 5. Step 6 here looks like we're going to be doing timeline tools and features. So this is going to be your kind of meat and potatoes kind of work here, manual stuff. I think a lot of people already got the gist of this with the audition project. Everybody seemed to be able to move things around quite easily. So just like in that program, we can also make trims, right? So we could actually cut pieces of the of a timeline or video clip with our razor blade tool, and we can select it, we can delete it, or we can move it around. All right, so if we wanted to take this and put it on a different layer, right, we could do that, because then we could also hide that layer if we wanted to. Okay, so that's the razor tool. Let's see, there's a couple of more specific notes in here that could be beneficial. Razor tool can divide a clip into sections. Okay. I do mention ripple deleting, but the one thing I do want to mention about this is just because we cut that doesn't mean that the clip actually is contained only in this area. So if we were to hover at the beginning or the end like this, we can grab the edge and we can pull it, right? And this is actually the same clip as down here, right? So if I were to pull this all the way to the beginning and all the way over, that's exactly the same clip. It hasn't even moved in time, right? So just because a clip has been condensed doesn't mean it's gone. It allows that wiggle room, because this is, in reality, this is just in reference to whatever you have over here in your files. Another point, what's another one? So you also could use markers if you wanted to, you know, right? So if you have something selected here, right? Like say you want to make a marker here on this point in the timeline, you could select it, then hit M, and it'll make a mark on the layer on that track. Otherwise, if we don't have something selected and we hit M, the marker will come up here. Okay, and we should have a section for markers as well. Yep. And then, interesting, there it is. Right, so we can go through and keep track of our files that way, or our layers, our content. And another thing about the timeline I suppose I should call out is right here is our actual timestamp. So we can see about where we're at right here. And as we go, this number is going to be changing, right? This is frames and seconds, minutes, and hours. So as we go along, this is just frame by frame until we get to the next second, right? We set it to 30 frames per second. If you're trying to get a specific spot and it's not letting you, you can just go over here and type it, right? And then just hit enter, and it's going to nudge over to that. So this is another way to keep organized as well. You know, not only could you keep your markers like this, which you can just point at, but in the past, I used to just manually write down points that I wanted to keep in reference. So, I mean, obviously the markers are clear, pretty clear way to work. And I believe we should be able to, yes. We should be able to use markers as smart snapping points, right? See how we just, or if I drag the clip over even a tiny bit, it's just going to snap. To get away from doing that, we could probably zoom way in. I just use this bottom, right? And then I'm using my scroll wheel to scroll over. You could zoom in and then you don't have as much of that snapping happening. But also we should have a option for snap. And I don't know where it is here. So let's look at help, snap, snap in timeline. So we turn that off and that should prevent it from snapping. I personally like the snap, but it's up to how you work. Okay, there's two more pieces here, tools. One's the rate shift tool, and I'm fairly new to using some of these different features. I don't know how new they are, but I don't use them all the time. So under the ripple edit tool, this is the rate shift tool. Rate stretch tool. So let's try this on a clip that we can see better, like the motorbike. So here's this motorbike clip. And if we take this and drag it inward, and then I'm going to go ahead and render into out. Oh yeah, that's way sped up. Right. Yeah. It's even louder, more high pitch, I mean. Okay. So the rate shift tool. This allows you to speed up or slow down a clip. In the past, I've always done like a right click, and there's a lot of features under here as well. So I'm assuming you probably could, yeah, speed duration, right? But this would be more of like a calculated thing. You don't actually get to align it to anything in your timeline. So if you wanted it to be specific towards your timeline, it could be easier to, use this tool and drag it manually, because then you have these snap options and so forth, right? A lot of clips, especially if they're distorted or if you have a lot of effects on them. And I mean, most of the projects I think are going to be really abstract anyway. So if you have like a little space for, you need filler, can't think of like what to do, you could always stretch and pull clips like that. And then the last one is the slip edit tool. This tool keeps the physical trim points intact on your timeline while allowing you to slide the content either forward or backward in time. So this can be beneficial. And I think I did actually use the motorcycle clip for this as an example, because you could see the background jump. So if we zoom in here, and this is also kind of a niche one, but you know, if you have a clip like this, if you split it down the middle, right, nothing's different. We just split where it starts and ends. We should be able to use this tool. Which one? Ripple. Yeah. Very quick. So this, in essence, see there's like a slight skip right there. It's because I use this ability to move the clip inside the container. Because like I was mentioning before, all of these clips, even though we cut them, right? Like I cut this one, but there's still more content at the beginning of it. Well, there was. It's odd now. Okay, so maybe not. That looks like it's ending in the same spot. It definitely jumps right here. So that one's a little bit more technical. Like if you're gonna try to save time, you can move things around without actually moving things inside here. I mean, the way that I usually work anyway, I don't usually have clip to clip like this, right? We'd end up having additional tracks kind of stacked out like this. This is usually the way I end up working. And then, you know, as you go back down, you could have things back on layer 2, layer 1, and so forth. I don't know. I find this to be less cumbersome because, you know, even though like this would be hidden underneath of this, you could still have some of this clip extended or some of this clip extended, and nothing's extending for some reason. All I did was use the razor tool, which I've never had a problem with extending in the past. I did at the beginning of this demo. Okay, well, continuing on for now. My voice is rough. So step 7 here. This is the most basic transition come across. It's cross dissolve. So we can just go and apply this somewhere. And I'm going to put these back. Oops. So right here, where there's going to be 2 clips converging, we should be able to just right click and apply default transition. Oh, because we're too close to beginning and ends. Right, it's just gonna be like a general cross dissolve. And that's fine if you want to use some of those. They're generally a subtle way to transition between content. But realistically, once you start to get into transitions like this, instead of like a jump cut, right? If there's nothing there, it's just a jump cut from one to the next. So if we wanted to, pick our transition, we could, we're going to go through the effects panel and look at that. One other quick thing though is after you apply any transition or effect, it's going to show right here on your timeline. So what we could do is expand this out a bit and see the previews in here a little better. And if we were to click right on the clip's going to highlight, but if we click on the transition, that's going to highlight. And we actually get a different symbol. And this symbol is in reference to the transition. So if we want the transition to be longer, we can set how many seconds. Pretty straightforward. So if we wanted to get into more effects, one second, I got a lot of bars everywhere here. We would simply just want to go up here to the top, see how we're right now in editing. This is the workspace that I had us go to, right? If we want to play with effects, we need to toggle over to effects. And notice after we go to effects, we're losing some of our real estate here. But as long as we're going to be actively using effects, we should have it open. As soon as it becomes like you're too cramped, you could always go back, right? So under effects, we would want to look down here through the options and boom, video transitions. So under here, there's a whole plethora of ones you can explore. Here's the regular cross dissolve. And I believe morph cut is the one that can mess videos up. I haven't looked into why. Try to just stick away to morph cut. I never looked up like how to use it. I just threw it on a clip before and it didn't even render on the export. Like the export had like an error message on that part. I never tried to solve it. So just potentially for now, just avoid that. So I guess disclaimer, after you export your clip, you always want to preview it, make sure it looks fine. Could be easy to forget to think about. So yeah, we could use like a iris cross here, bring that in, and that'll instantaneously replace a different effect if you had a different effect there for a cross dissolve, right? And then we could do like in, out, and is there a shortcut for this? There's no shortcut. Render into out. I'm gonna do a save here too, but right. So Step 8 is arguably the most crucial aspect of this whole tutorial. It's the one you should be spending the most time on. And there's 3 separate components here that I want all of you to be able to get in and comprehend. So, well, keyframing is kind of part of all of them. So there's cropping we're going to be doing. There's masking, and then chroma keying is an effect, but it is a very powerful effect to allow, kind of like in Photoshop, how we were able to do like layer blending. We can do that here with chroma keying. So you can think of that even as like more than one layer through, right? How many layers could you go through and have it kind of show through? Be kind of interesting, especially on like a kaleidoscope image. So both of these YouTube tutorials will walk over it. I'm just gonna like re-articulate them essentially. So the masking, like cropping, sorry, not masking, the cropping tool, this should be available for every clip. So if we go over here, we can see we have this option, effect controls. If you're under the editing, it's still going to be here as well. It's just in a different spot. Effect controls is where you are able to edit the effects. Okay. I will say for this exercise, we're only aiming for like, what was it, like 20, 30 seconds. So if that's the case, we probably want to, bring all this stuff in and condense it down from there. Maybe I don't need kaleidoscope twice, so forth. Right? You're gonna keep working on that. You're on your own, and by the end of this exercise, I want you to have like 4 or 5 different clips. We'll say like 5 or 6, really. In each of the clips, you should be exploring some of the effects for that clip. And I don't mean just the basics, right? Like I haven't applied any effects to Kaleidoscope, and these are still available, right? These different options. You should also be exploring adding effects to clips, as well as managing those effect controls. So we're going to start with that first one that I was talking about. Let me just move my page so I can have reference. The cropping. So up here in our effect controls, if we have this clip selected, right, nothing will show up if we don't have something selected. I'm on the kaleidoscope layer. Now, if we drop down these arrows, we get different elements here to manipulate, and changing any of these is going to change whatever the corresponding attribute is. And we can see that some of these subcategories have even further subcategories. Okay. So the first one we were talking about was cropping. And I believe we just want to use this. width, height. What tool? Read this 1 second.
We're going to go to the effects panel on the right hand side, and we're going to search for one called crop. This is in the transform.
Oh, okay. I had my assumption was here because I see we do have the mask here. I think from the get-go I got confused. I confused the two in my mind. So this is under video effects. So we do have to go over to the effects panel and bring this over. Video effects and video? No. Okay, so it's under video effects, transform, crop. And if we have this clip selected, we could just double click it, or we can drag and drop onto the clip. And since we do have it selected, it now should pop up over here. Yes, there we go, crop. So we can now make changes here. You can either click and drag, right? And that will actively move it over. And that's actually going to stay there now, right? Because if we manually change anything, we didn't really specify when we're changing it. It's just on the clip in its entirety. That brings up the next note. That's the most crucial element of all of this, which is why it gets a little complex. We have an individual timeline up here. Okay. And depending on where you are on this clip, you'll see that your playhead will actually also change. Although I am getting some lag, but so point being is that we can actually set individual marks or keyframes right here on this little timeline. And then these are going to correspond to the specific effect controls that we're looking at. So this definitely is the more complex element of this whole project, is like getting in and being able to manage this individual effect panel controls. Definitely a little bit confusing. So again, we have our clip selected. We've applied an effect to our clip. And now under effect controls, we are going to expand this effect. And I'm going to set this back to 0. And if we go to the very beginning, we can set a keyframe right here, little diamonds on that first frame. And if we were to, if we do 100 and 100, okay, so now we're going to have black. And now if we go over, we could even say a specific, say if we want 5 seconds. right? 5 seconds in. And we could use our left and right cursor too, if you want to go frame by frame. Right. But we go 5 seconds in, and now we can add more keyframes. So we can add a keyframe here, add a keyframe here, and maybe we can set these back to 0 on this keyframe. Okay. And so now if we did input out, render into out, so what we see here is a fade from one to another. And as the time goes, you'll see these numbers actively change. What's also worth pointing out is as soon as this timeline playhead gets over top of a keyframe, the keyframes will highlight in blue. Okay. So it's important to understand that we've turned on the toggle, meaning we're going to be animating this specific subclip component. We're going to be animating it since it's going to happen over time. So we only did these 2 pieces, right? Hopefully everybody is following that. I'll also, I guess, specifically point out that these keyframes that we've added, they show up in alignment with the 2 effects that we've done. Right, so we could actually drop this down and we don't see the keyframes. It only shows that there's a dot. Okay, so we would have to re-expand that to see them, and there they are. And looks like we changed the curves on these, but so yeah. I think we should probably take this moment to try out another clip effect. I'm going to go to my motorcycle bike here. And let's do something else. Lens distortion. All right. So I put the lens distortion on this. And then the very beginning of this clip, I know I'm at the beginning because it shows up here. If I went to the left once, it'd disappear. Okay, so I don't know which of these effects I'm going to actually use yet, but let's see. Vertical prism. Let's see anything happening there. Ah, there we go. Got something going. Curvature. Interesting. I definitely went too far, but I think this is another opportunity to talk about something else. So let's go to the end of this clip instead. And we can turn on these keyframes here and crank them up. Oh, there's an inverted. Okay, that works. So say you make an effect like this and it looks like it's a little too off the screen, right? We could then go back to motion in our effect controls, and we can just modify the position of it. Or we should be able to, unless it's cutting off the edges, which I guess it is. I would think that effect that since we're blurring it out, we'd have more, but okay. Let's go to the beginning and turn these on and put these back at 0. Okay, now if I go in, out, render into out. I think would also make it even more intense is an effect like colors, maybe lighting effects. So if I threw in a lighting effect, we're at the beginning of the clip. Yes. And not lighting effects. Just thinking about color. Levels. Maybe just throw levels on there. Okay, gamma. So I'm gonna put a keyframe on gamma for RGB on the first frame, and then over to the last frame and darken the gamma. And maybe a couple other ones. Where's red? There. Oh, it didn't automatically add a toggle animation. So let's do gamma on a couple of these. There. There. And then back to beginning. And then 0. I thought it was 255, 0. There, okay. So now render into out again. Right, so it's somewhat of a meticulous process of being able to migrate, manage your timeline in here, as well as expanding, collapsing effect panels, and then adding your animations. And then once the animation is on, you can add your keyframes wherever you want them. Now, if you're just trying to change the color without changing it over time, you don't need the animation. Okay, so this is all cropping with that effect that we did here at the beginning. And then working with keyframes. The last part here with step 8 is the masking and chroma keying. So for this next step, say that I want to work on this clip right here. So I was selecting the clip. We come up here to go and select our pen under the opacity. And if we were to start clicking and making marks, we don't see any points. Come to find out that you actually also have your playhead on that area in order to see the points. Okay. So this pen tool works the same way as like all the other programs. I don't know why it rotated there. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, because I guess there's a rotate feature. Interesting. Pretty slick. So now, if we were to take this clip and put it like over top of the kaleidoscope here, right? We should be able to see that over top. And then also with this kaleidoscope, I want us to do a pretty fun example. And I believe I used the pink clip. So if we bring out the pink clip, yes. Now, this pink clip, we're probably going to have to readjust the scale of it since it's a different proportion. So we'd want to come up here, change the scale, boom. Maybe break it down a tiny bit. Okay. Actually, probably should just zoom in like that. Cut her forehead out a little bit. ultra zoomed in shot. So what I want to do with this is overlay it onto our kaleidoscope here. I'm just kind of concising everything. Now I want to apply a green screen effect. And this is through chroma key, the chroma key effect. So this is going to be under, I believe, video effects and keying and ultra key. So I'm applying this ultra key to this pink here. And we would need to set our key color. Now, as it stands, it looks like we're going from this motorcycle that's hovering on top of into the pink. That seems like it's gonna be a weird transition. So I think what I'm gonna do is put a transition on, trying to. Interesting. Hello. Just trying to put a transition here. Iris box. Can only put it on pink, huh? Okay, so what if I don't have anything there? Thank you. That's what I was trying to do the whole time. Okay, so that's going to dissolve that out. And then I want to feed into this. So I'm going to put an iris in here. And then the first frame of this pink, it's the first frame. And let's set the toggle animation for the key color. And I guess I'll take that iris off for the time being because that's messing me up. Okay, so click the animation on. Then we're going to select the black here and change it. So yeah, that's fine. Using the eyedropper, we can select a color on our screen. Right, so something in the pink maybe. You could pick her scarf here, her glasses maybe. Does that work? Kinda ish. The shadow area here. I think the easiest is just clicking on the pink. And then if we go to the last frame, we can set another keyframe, and then we can return this to black. Okay, and then maybe cross dissolve, some weird effects here. Oop, not morph cut. Okay, so now input, output, sequence, render into out. So rather than that, what we could do is use that tool we were trying to play with earlier. Believe the slide. No, not slide. Slip. Ooh, it's hard to see. Then we could do other silly things too, like, you know, rotation maybe. Like maybe there's a rotation thing on here in different areas. Right, and then render into out, because this is like a chunk of video over top of other video. Obviously, these are two very drastically different types of very jarring, like memey, you know, deliberately bad, and into more like an elegant, subtle. And like right here, her eyes are too kind of close to the top. I might shift everything down. Set keyframes for like maybe the height here is good, but then after it's down, so we can adjust that. The other question I posed at the beginning was like, well, what happens if we have like 3 layers blending with one another? That would be, oops, I think I was still on the wrong tool. That would be like if we took this and put it on top. Because we have the motorbike there. Kind of lost, right? Still there. So clearly we didn't intend for this, so it's not really set up for it, but we should be able to clearly see how There's also really fun ones like mirroring. And you know, like having something reflect. What other points do I want to say? I want to say that's probably it. If I bring back open this video, I could take a quick scrub here. Yeah, so see, this was that morph cut that I mentioned. Don't try with the robot right here. Kind of like an effect we would end up doing more in After Effects, like kind of warping. It's very quick right here too, but you see after my robot, I fade into this Burning Man. Let's see if I can slow this down and show you a little bit more. I just bounced. So it's just moving things around. So all I really want you guys to be doing is experimenting, playing with several different things. I would say just go for the 30 seconds, make it pretty cut and dry, and try these different things. Try cropping, try a bunch of different keyframing on a bunch of different effects. Try to chroma key through 2 layers. How does that work? Try to mask something and then have that float around maybe, right? Or, you know, after you mask something, you can copy and paste it a bunch of times and do whatever you want with all of them, right? So this is kind of like the opportunity to play around. I wouldn't get hung up doing like some effect for way too long, right? Try to just get pieces in place over the 30 seconds, work a little bit on one. Oh, this is cool. And then go to the next and work a little bit and play it by how much time you have. Because you can get lost working on something for, you know, an hour and realize, oh, that was only 15 seconds. So yeah, that's all we have for this exercise. The only other thing is then step 9, which is exporting. And it's pretty self-explanatory. We will be choosing a specific format. It's H.264. So say we're, excuse me, say we're, oh geez, say we're content with how this is laid out. We could then just go up to File, Export Media, and export video and audio. There is the option to export like match sequence settings. So if you had set those at the beginning and you want to just keep those, I find it might be easier just everyone use the same export preference. So H.264 is an encryption format where it's kind of compressing things well for web. Then we can just do mobile device, which is going to be even a little bit more compression. Mobile device, 1080p HD, right? So this is just like standard HD. Should still be in stereo audio. And then you go ahead and hit export, as long as you are saving it to the right spot, right? Exercise 3, Bernard. Save, export. And it'll take some time to go through, do the whole thing. All right. I think the only other thing that I went over in person before, but I didn't go over right now, is like using a song. Did I put a song on here? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, using a song. So I still want that. I just forgot to mention it. I cut over. So just real quick, all you would want to be doing then is for all of your audio you could even do it all at once, I'm pretty sure. Select everything and go to unlink. And then you could select all your audio separately and delete it. Then you would just drop in some audio. And I thought I did. I didn't include it in here. I just downloaded it from the web. You know, you download your own specific song. And use this YouTube converter to be able to go to whatever you want for audio and download it. Make sure you put it in your exercise folder first, import it, then you could plop it into your timeline, and then you can edit based on your audio. And the one nice thing about working with your own audio is while it's playing, right, you could use the M key on your keyboard for markers, and you could just keep putting markers like to the beat of the song, right? And then after you have those there, you could use those as where you'd go and make your edit points, right? So should be somewhat self-explanatory. Kind of out of context. I've stopped this a bunch to save my voice here. That's it. We can go over a recap on Monday. Hopefully to make sure everybody's up to par. All right, great. Thanks, guys.